You're on this.
I'm sorry, I just read the comments. Read the chat.
Far away.
Okay, should we give it a go? Are we ready to proceed? Okay, that's great. This is Claire Regan. Hi, everybody. Thanks for your patience. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 9:35 Eastern Time. Israel, would you please take roll call?
Absolutely. Claire.
Here.
Israel is here. Ashanti. I think I heard here, but I barely heard her on our end. Yeah, so just FYI, I barely heard her on our end. Emily?
Here.
Daniela?
Here.
Jody?
Here.
Adam?
Here.
Kevin?
Here.
And Peter. Peter is absent, so we've got 8 board members present, 1 absent, Madam President.
Thank you. All right. Gathered from all different places. So welcome, and I'll move on to the approval of the minutes from August 13th, 2023. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. It's Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin. A second?
I'll second it.
Sometimes you might have to say who you are because I can't
Daniela,
see.
sorry.
Thank you, Daniela. Okay, any discussion?
Don't talk. You're unmuted.
Okay, do you need more time or are you good? Seems like we're good.
I think we're good.
Anybody in the room raising their hand? Ashanti's helping me.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I think we're ready to take a vote then. I think we can do it verbally. All those in favor of approving the minutes from August 13th, please say aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. The minutes are approved. And we're going to move on to number 5 on the agenda, and I'm going to hand it over to Jennifer Royer, our interim executive director, to introduce the staff members present in Vegas. Jennifer.
Thank you, Claire. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry I can't be there with you in person. If I were there, I could see what staff members are in the room, but I will just tell you, there should be Rod Hicks sitting there and Lucas Metropolis. He's our new fundraising director, and we'll talk to him a little bit later in the meeting. Zoe Berg from the communications team, and Billy O'Keefe running the tech. And also there in Vegas working this week is Karen Sneath, Kim Suyuki, Lou Harry, Crystal O'Keefe, Katie Riggs, and Linda Hall, a familiar face that you'll see behind the registration desk. So be sure to talk to them, identify them. If you have any issues or problems, stop them in the hallway. They're ready to help you with anything you need. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. On to the president's report. I'm going to keep it brief. You'll be hearing from me on Saturday at the business meeting and elsewhere in the dinner. I just wanted to say a few words about our budget situation. We do continue to face challenges with the budget. And on behalf of the board, I want to say we hear your concerns. We hear the members' concerns. We hear your requests and your suggestions. And I just want to give a little context to it. It might be helpful as we navigate together. And that is that this situation is not unprecedented. In 1989, Carolyn Carlson she was only the second woman to hold the office of president for SPJ. And she and her board faced a similar situation. There was an unstable budget, declining membership, and she and the board opted to move headquarters. They were located in Chicago at the time, and move them back to Greencastle, Indiana. as a cost-cutting measure. And they also rebuilt the staff and introduced staggered dues, which brought in infusion of cash, and saved them from bankruptcy, saved SPJ from bankruptcy. So it was on the brink of bankruptcy in 1989. I know this because I wrote a column for Quill about it and interviewed Carolyn, and I believe she's in Vegas for the conference. So please find her and ask her for more information about 1989's challenge. So the point is that solutions are out there, and we will find them, and we will find our way out of this together. I also want to just thank the board for their service. And I mean, we've faced, several very difficult challenges since day one that we took office. And I appreciate the solidarity and all the effort. And that's it for now. All right. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have Foundation President's Report. I believe Hagit is there in the room. Hagit, do you want a summary of your report?
Sure. Is it in the packet? I hope it's in the packet.
It is, but you're welcome to give highlights if you like.
I think that, well, first of all, Claire, thank you very much for all that you arranged this year. I want to definitely mention the friend-raising effort in Washington, D.C., which was a really wonderful event, and hopefully we can build on that. I do want to say really one thing from the foundation's perspective is I know there are a lot of people who are really, really worried right now about SPJ's finances, and I really want to calm those fears. I want to echo what you just said, Claire, that we will find solutions. We just will. We're going to work together, and we're going to get past this. So I hope people can just get to the business at hand here at convention. There are a lot of important measures that are being considered, and I hope people can concentrate on those and enjoy the convention that this board, this SPJ board, has put together for everyone to hopefully learn, get to know each other, and let's just get to work.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to hand it back to Jennifer to introduce the fundraising staff.
Oh, I do. I have a report, Claire, if you want me to
Did I
go over
skip
that.
that?
real
I'm
quick.
sorry. I skipped you. Let's go
Okay.
back to that, number 8. I apologize.
Okay.
I'm
That's
I'm
okay.
racing to get through the meeting. Sorry.
I know, that's okay.
It's
Um,
late
I'll-
here on the East Coast.
It is. I'll try to make it quick. I wanted to kind of take this time to look back to where we've come from, how far we've come this year, and then just kind of set up some of the things we'll be talking about in this meeting. So the beginning of this month marked 1 year since I moved into this interim executive director role. At this time last year, we were 1 month away from Media Fest 22. The executive director had resigned. We had lost 2 accounting staff members, a membership coordinator, an administrative assistant, and we're working to put the finishing touches on the convention because it was a month later than this year's convention. We didn't know where we stood financially due to the loss of staff, among other things, and the institutional knowledge those staff members took with them. After Media Fest 22 ended in late October, there were multiple fires that President Claire Reagan, this board, and myself inherited and had to put out. We had to get our bearings, gather information, figure out what needed fixed first, and move ahead to make the best decisions possible with the information we had. November through April were spent cleaning up and getting things in working order. That is 6 months that it took just to get a handle on where we stood. Today, while the numbers are not where we want them to be, we know where we stand financially and are working hard to reduce or eliminate the projected deficit budget. I emphasize the word projected because a lot can happen in this last quarter of 2023. And since we're in Las Vegas, I will bet that we end the year in a better position than many are anticipating right now. The 2022 audit will be complete in the next couple of weeks, and the auditors describe it as another clean audit, meaning they have found no mismanagement of funds. Immediately after convention, we will begin putting together the 2024 budget. We have made many difficult but necessary cuts in expenses this year to try to offset the loss of revenue. At the same time, we're working on plans to increase revenue. Part of that plan was hiring a new fundraising director who you will meet very soon. Also in this meeting, I will explain why this board and the SPJ Foundation Board should explore the idea of moving headquarters functions to an association management company. And while this board approved staff moving ahead with the 2024 convention in Indianapolis, we will revisit that decision before contracts are signed and the decision is set in stone. While it is easy to look at budget projections and let them cause panic and bring us down, there has been a lot of progress made by this board and staff over the past year. If anyone wants to discuss this progress in more detail with me, I'm happy to speak with any concerned SPJ leader or member one-on-one. We are in a much better position than we were a year ago. We have made progress, though admittedly it is never as fast as we would like, and we have ideas and options for moving forward. I'm confident a year from now we will be in a much better position than today if we all work together. So instead of complaining about what's wrong and being pessimistic about SPJ's future, I urge us to collaborate on solutions and be optimistic about the way forward. We are all on the same team. And until we act like it and stop being so critical and skeptical of the people in our own organization, we will never make the strides that I know every single one of us wants to see for this society. The only way SPJ will get through these trying times is for us to work together in a positive and productive way. Let's see how far we can take SPJ in the coming year so we can look back next September and celebrate our accomplishments. Thank you, Claire.
All
Turn it
right,
back
thank
to
you. Thank you for those candid thoughts. I appreciate that. All right, we're gonna go back to the introduction of the fundraising staff, the Metropolis Group, and I'll hand that back to Jennifer.
Yes, thank you. So as a lot of you know, we conducted a search. We interviewed several really great candidates for the new director of fundraising position. And Lucas Metropolis, who is sitting there in the room, messaged me on LinkedIn and he said, I'm not your traditional candidate here, but I think I can help you. And so we had some conversations. He introduced me to his staff and his company, Metropolis Group, which he runs with his brother. And after doing all the interviews and doing our due diligence, we decided to make the offer to Lucas and his company to help us with grant writing, fundraising, campaigns, all of that good stuff. So with that, I've asked Lucas to just say a few words and introduce himself so you can kind of get to know him. He's going to be meeting with key leaders and potential donors and longtime donors during convention there in Vegas. So with that, I will turn it over to Lucas.
Right over there. They can hear me. Right. Hello, everybody. Hello there. There's my hand. I'm Lucas Metropolis, as Jennifer said. She mentioned I work with my brother and a few other folks. We run Metropolis Group, my name. But primarily we do development consulting, fundraising. I've heard one thing that's really exciting for me is to hear even talking about the challenges, how much passion there is even in this room. I've worked with a lot of organizations that have gone through difficult times. I've worked with ones who are very well off. And I've been through these situations and understand how to fundraise in both of those scenarios. But I am excited to work with SPJ, really to see, how we can maximize these amazing relationships you guys already have, but also look beyond that and even more external to see what kind of resources we can bring in. So I'm only about a week or so on the job, so I didn't come with amazing, crazy ideas to talk about, but I do encourage if anybody wants to talk to me individually or as small groups while I'm here. I'm actually in Melrose too, throughout the next few days, and please, you can stop by. I'll be pinging a few people wanting to connect that have been here for a while. But again, just really excited to learn more about what you're all doing, understand it, maximize what we can do, build relationships, and make things even more consistent, especially on the fundraising realm for you all. But again, welcome ideas from you all, you know the organization through and through way better than I do so far. So that's why I'm here to learn these next few days. So yeah, I don't know, miss anything else? Any questions for me maybe?
I see Israel has a question. Go ahead, Israel.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I have several questions, more for Jennifer, and then certainly for the board members, and then certainly for Lucas. The first question, and it was asked by Cecilia here in Zoom. I wonder if we can get details on the cost. As I understand it originally, the plan was that the foundation would give $30,000 to SPJ so that we could get a grant writer. That was the original understanding. It looks like what Lucas just said is that it's going to be grant writing, it's going to be fundraising. So I'd like to know the dollars. What is it costing us? What are the contract details? In other words, what we're paying for versus how much percentage is the fundraiser going to earn from the actual, money that he tries to get from donors. So maybe we can get a little bit more detail on the finances.
I'm happy to answer that as best I can. Typically, headquarters staff, we don't make the salaries of most people public. You can look up the top 3 salary earners in a year in the tax information that is made public for 501c6s. I can tell you that we used that $30,000 that the foundation gave for a grant writer because Lucas's staff does do grant writing and has experience with that. And we combined it with what we are saving from that director of development salary line that was in mostly the foundation's budget. And we're saving money on not having to pay payroll taxes or health insurance benefits, 401k matches, any of that. So, I can say that given the candidates and the experience that Lucas and his team has, I think we're getting a very good deal, and it's saving us money. And
to the other question,
really...
Jennifer, to the other question on how much do we get as a percentage? So we don't take percentages in fundraising for the kind of work I do with nonprofits. That's why it's a flat monthly fee. And so for example, we raised $2 million. It's not like I would get some kind of percentage on that, nor would I ever want to do it that way. And then as Jennifer said, we are contractors. So there is a savings with the benefits. And in terms of our compensation, it is well below what you might hire someone with my experience for specifically as a development director. I can assure you that one. But yeah.
As a follow-up question to you, Jennifer, and to you, Lucas, I understand, Jennifer, that you don't release salaries of employers, but as I understand it, Lucas is a contractor, not an employer. So contract information should be disclosed to the public because just like any other contractor, we put them in the line of the budget. As far as saving, because it came from the development line, we eliminated that development line from the budget. That's how we were able to at least get to barely in the black. So did we take money that had not been appropriated from the approval of the budget from back in March?
No, the money was there. At the time the 2023 budget was created, we had a full-time development employee who was getting a salary and benefits.
And so what you're saying is because that salary was approved in the budget, and then, as I understand it, remind me if I'm wrong, we were in the black in the end of the second quarter by $65 because 2 jobs were eliminated. And so back then, as I recall, that was a favorable thing that we actually barely made it in the black because we did eliminate that position. So then how were we able to use that money to then extend it if by that time we were barely in the black?
That was not a position that was eliminated. In March, I had no idea.
No, end of second quarter. So May, June, at our meeting at the end of second quarter, as I recall, you told us that we had now made it into the black by the end of the second quarter because 2 positions had been eliminated?
There are a couple of positions that we haven't filled, but this development position was not ever taken out of that budget line. I mean, the budget was approved when we had a development person. I mean, we saved money for a time because there was nobody employed in that position, but we never eliminated the development director position.
As I understand it, I think that director position was roughly 65,000 annually plus benefits, $30,000 for the grant. So I can at least estimate that we're paying Lucas around 100,000. Is that
No.
all we're paying? 100,000?
No,
That's
Plus-
not, I'm not getting paid that much if you want to know.
Okay,
no.
thank you. Thank you. But is there a base? So you say you're getting a flat fee.
Yes,
Right.
So then what is that flat fee? If it's a contractor, I don't think we can keep that away from the members.
Well, I mean, we
Yeah.
don't usually disclose details of contracts, any
Yes, we do.
contracts.
We always do.
We talk about it in
Absolutely.
executive session, hotel contracts for convention. We have 1, 2, 3, like 4 contract workers on staff right now.
Yes,
Um,
and those lines are put in the budget.
Mark Balin, would you mind weighing in on this? Because it is my
Yeah,
understanding
no,
that we
it-
don't discuss contracts in public.
Contracts are one of the things that are specifically enumerated when it comes to executive session, discussion of contracts. So Israel, typically contracts are not discussed in open session. This is done for purposes of protecting the society, but also for the contractors. A lot of times contractors, for competitive reasons, do not want to be disclosing financial details to the public. And so in order to keep track of them, we agreed to not do that in open session. But certainly, I think Israel, to your point, these are questions that can be taken up in executive session and addressed when we deal with other financial issues.
Just to clarify, Mark, and please tell me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, under the bylaws, we only go into executive session to discuss the details of the contract. But once the contract is signed, then there's no longer any reason to keep the details of the contract that has been approved from both the board members and the public.
No, I don't think that's correct.
Okay.
All right. Are there any other questions from board members? All right, I think,
excited to work with you all.
yeah, thank you, Lucas. Welcome to SPJ. I look forward to meeting you in person. Okay, so moving on to number 10 and back to Jennifer to elaborate on what she mentioned during her IED report about association management. Jennifer?
Thank you again, Claire. I hope I can keep my voice through the end of this meeting. So yes, there's a memo in the board folder about association management. I begin just by explaining that when Claire and SPJ Foundation President Hagit Lamore and past Foundation President Erwin Gratz were in Indianapolis in July for Future Leaders Academy. We met and discussed the idea of SPJ and the foundation considering moving headquarters work to an association management company. I also brought up the idea to Vice President Ashanti Blaze Hopkins, and this group was open to the idea. So I invited Tina Waymeyer of the AMC Institute to give a short presentation to this group. Karen Sneath, SPJ's Director of Education, also joined that meeting. And I believe this group finds the idea pretty intriguing and are interested in exploring it further. Given the past few challenging years, I recommend at least considering this option as a way forward for both SPJ and the SPJ Foundation. For a little background, when I started at SPJ 9 years ago, then Executive Director Joe Skeel began implementing an association management plan for SPJ headquarters, where SPJ staff would basically be an association management company. He saw a need among other smaller journalism organizations to help with things like accounting, membership, communications, and conferences for these smaller groups. At the time, headquarters had about 13 full-time staff members who were skilled and capable of handling the additional work. He sold that idea to some of those organizations and they paid SPJ to do their work in one or more of those areas. It was a great idea and a much needed additional revenue stream for SPJ at the time. Fast forward a few years later, and Joe left SPJ. The association management work wasn't seen as a priority, and staff members left, and headquarters staff became smaller as some positions were turned into contract positions. Headquarters no longer had a large enough or experienced enough staff team to handle the additional workload, so organizations gradually didn't renew their contracts for SPJ to do the work. We lost those last 3 groups last year due to losing 3 accounting staff members, because those last 3 groups, we were just doing accounting for them. So today, I would like to propose that we consider SPJ taking some or all of its work to an association management company. SPJ is basically a trade association, similar to member associations for heart surgeons, librarians, or dentists. You name it, there's an association for it. SPJ is a trade association for journalists. Karen and I personally know many AMC leaders and companies, many of whom are headquartered right here in Indianapolis, and we've spoken to several. We've done our research and think SPJ and the foundation moving some or all of their headquarters functions to an association management company may be a cost-effective and overall beneficial solution to many of the challenges SPJ faces today. Some of those benefits could include shared resources such as a member donor database, shared staffing, more bargaining power for things like convention contracts, etc. So I am recommending that both the SPJ and SPJ Foundation boards meet with Tina Waymeyer of the AMC Institute, which is basically an association for association management companies. And I recommend they meet with her as soon as possible so she can explain the role of an AMC in more detail and discuss the benefits and reasons why many associations like SPJ turn to this model. Her job is not to sell anything, but to answer questions and be a resource for us if it is decided we should explore this idea further. If one or both boards are interested in learning more, I will plan an informational session scheduled as soon as possible. And I know, Ashanti, Claire, Hagee, they're all in the meeting. They can talk about it and add their comments if they would like. And yeah, if I get the go ahead, I'll set up the meeting so we can learn more. So thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. I do have a question just to kickstart the question session here. So what would the day-to-day look like? I mean, if you could just explain what you know of how that works and what kind of staff, SPJ staff would be in the mix.
Sure. It really depends on a lot of factors, but it could mean that no SPJ staff goes to this association management company. A lot of them are already established and have multiple clients, and they have a big enough staff that they could take us on without moving any headquarters staff. So it could mean that we're all out of jobs. On the brighter side, it could also mean that they would move over key positions that you all feel like have a lot of SPJ specific knowledge that would be beneficial to moving over to the AMC company. So for example, you might decide your membership person needs to go with the association management company, or a fundraising staff person or an executive director. It really is tailored to whatever you all think the needs are, and then what the AMC would recommend. So it's hard to say specifically what it would look like at this point in the early stages.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'm just looking to see if any board member has a question. So your recommendation is that, I'll go to you in a second, Israel, is that I think a presentation would be helpful and we would open it up to the membership so we could all see what it's about. Maybe some more details and context would be helpful. Israel?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This is going to fall on the next board, obviously. So this is just an FYI and for what it's worth. And certainly I'll talk about this in my presentation in the finance report. But again, right now we're looking at roughly $350,000 in the red. Unlike the interim executive director who thinks that in the fourth quarter somehow we're going to make up that deficit, I don't. And I do think that the situation on the ground means we're going to go worse. Having said that, here's what I would say to Ashanti and to the next board. Certainly, you're going to have to think outside the box. I'm a big proponent that it is time for the foundation and the board to merge together. The idea that we have a 501c3 and a 501c6 when we don't do any advocacy really doesn't require two separate organizations. And with their $14 million in the bank, that would certainly help our organization. So I would say that this should be part of a conversation of how do we reshape SPJ into one large organization. And I think that would necessitate an association management. And furthermore, we still have an interim executive director, and we've never had the money to be able to go out and look for someone who understands budget, HR issues, management issues. So certainly this is something that could fix that issue, but I would certainly encourage everyone to please make this conversation transparent as best as possible. But it should be in a much larger conversation rather than just take over management duties. How can we restructure both SPJ Foundation and SPJ Board?
Okay, thank you.
Kevin had a comment.
Yeah, so I guess the obvious question that's been touched on slightly is, so what does this mean for staff? Are we expected that most of our staff are either going to get pulled into this new management company, or are we expecting that we're going to lose staff? And if we are going to lose staff, what, in terms of salaries and benefits and those things, what are we projecting as potential savings?
Can I answer that first question? Just on this on the AMCI call. So I will say that there's a couple of different options that we will potentially have if we go with an association management company. So it's not just an all-in, and that's the only option that we have. They either have a hybrid option where we keep some of our staff and then they kind of fill the gaps of what we need. And then there's another option where they take on everything. It's full service association management. One of the questions that I had when we were in that meeting was, okay, I need to see the numbers, right? Like, how does that compare? If we look at both models, how does that compare to what we are currently spending, the money that's currently going out of the door? And if that is less, then that's something that we should consider. If it's more, then maybe not at this time, and maybe it's something that we can look at down the road once we kind of right the ship a bit. So I can say that it's hard to tell until we get that RFP in and we can see what the costs are for those two different models. So there is a world in which if we go this direction, that we could keep some of our staff. And then there's another world in which we don't have any staff, and the association management company handles everything from accounting, events, even fundraising, even if we want to do an ED search, they handle that too.
So we do have, I get that we have like communications people and fundraising. Well, we have a fundraiser, we have communication people, we have membership. But we do have a couple of positions that are not universally, like Rod's position, right? So we obviously need to take that in consideration.
Exactly. And so that's what I'm saying, we potentially have two different options where we don't get rid of everything. Where we keep some folks, we have them fill in the gaps, or if we decide that it's more cost effective to do the full association management, journey. But I think we're gonna have to see the numbers first. Until I see the numbers, this is all.
Yeah. So tonight you're asking, as Jennifer's asking us to continue to further explore this.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Emily Block.
Hi, thank you. I'm with Kevin and Ashanti where I feel comfortable just hearing more and understanding what our options are. I will say, just from what I know from CMA's perspective, College Media Association, I know that they're already using this sort of format, and they're not having a great experience from my understanding. I think they work with one called Kellen, and I think they have a new RFP out or going out. So I wonder if there's a chance where a potential for us to partner on an RFP or see if there's a way to work together on that. That's just a thought. But yeah, I'm totally open to hearing more, but I'm just obviously a little hesitant, but we won't know until we hear more. Thanks.
Yeah, Emily, great idea to get feedback from them on how it's working out.
Yeah, and I also say when we, also, I can say too, when we met, with the representatives from AMCI, one of the things that we did ask her is, you know, whoever we decide to go with, if we decide to go down that route, would we have the ability to ask for references about the organizations that use the association management firm that we might go with, so that we can compare and contrast, and make decisions based on track records and other organizations that are like us and their experience. So, you know, that would be part of the process as well, to ensure that, you know, if we do decide to go down this route, you know, we were able to do our due diligence before signing.
Okay, I'm looking for other questions from the board members.
Mine's
So-
not a question, but it's
Oh,
more of a
okay,
comment.
Leon?
Oh, can you hear me? Okay. I think we should look into this. If, you know, if we're proposing, I think it's the financially responsible thing to do, especially if it's gonna save us money, especially since we're in the situation that we're in, so I'm all for it.
So it seems like next step is what your suggestion was, Jennifer, which is to, you know, ask for a presentation. And maybe we can get some of the numbers there that Ashanti is suggesting for cost and just overall cost, and then and open it to the membership so everybody can see the whole concept and understand better how it works. Okay, next step.
That, if you haven't thought of this, and I'm going to guess you have, that at least we've had private conversations with our current staff to talk to them and get their input. I would just like to hear, I would like to hear from their perspective as we go through this process. At some point, I think it's important that we've had people who have been with us for quite some time. And I think out of respect, I would like to hear their comments before we make a final decision.
Okay, thank you for the suggestion, Kevin.
I appreciate that, Kevin. And yeah, I've been on staff, well, besides Billy now, who's back on contract, I've been on staff longer than anybody. And you know, it wasn't something that I entered into lightly, like the conversations, but the more I learned about this concept, I thought, you know, it could be just what SPJ needs. But I could be talking myself out of a job. So, you know, there is a downside, and I appreciate you wanting to get feedback from the staff, because yeah, it could mean that we're all looking for jobs eventually. Or maybe a few of us would be lucky enough to go with the AMC company, but that all remains to be seen. And I did want to add too, there is a very extensive RFP process. So after convention, my plan is to start filling out all of those forms and submitting all the information. So maybe they can get back to us with some more solid numbers, so we would know exactly what it would look like. So thank you.
And Jennifer, quick wrap-up question. I assume that there are other companies that do the same thing, and I'm wondering how you found this one or how this one came to your attention. I'm sorry if you mentioned it, but I didn't get that.
So AMCI is the Association for Association Management Companies. There are two here in Indianapolis that Karen and I know people who work for them, who run them, and so we've had meetings with them. But there are association management companies all over the country. You know, we spoke to a woman who runs one in Minnesota. So, you know, we would have to do some research and narrow it down to a few that we think, you know, maybe there's some out there who already do this for other journalism organizations, and they might make the most sense. So we'll just have to do some more research and try to narrow it down.
Okay, Daniela, do you want to ask your quick question?
No, Ashanti just answered it.
Okay, great. Okay, any other, you gave her the okay, or what? Any other questions about association management? Yeah, in the chat, there's a question about, do other professional journalism organizations use association management companies? And I believe Emily told us that CMA does. I don't know of any others myself.
I believe SPJ just recently hired one, maybe in the last year, for some of its staff functions. So yeah.
Yeah, and another question about does an association management company deal with journalism issues? You know, would they be understanding our context and the issues that we deal with? I don't know if you've heard about that yet, Jennifer, or we'd have to wait for the presentation on that.
Yeah, we would probably have to learn more. But we have asked that question, and Tina said that, you know, they usually have staff who've been working at different associations for most of their careers. They're very knowledgeable and have a lot of experience. So it's really a matter of them being experts in their job area and then learning the subject matter of, you know, whether it's journalism or health or whatever. So yeah,
Okay.
but we'll learn more.
All right, thanks for clarifying, and you'll keep us posted about setting that up.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to audit report, and we have the Donovan CPAs here to present that.
Actually, no. Yeah, sorry about that. They submitted just a summary so far. They need another week or two to wrap up the audit. So I told them they probably didn't need to call in tonight, but there is that summary in the board folder. And I'll let it kind of speak for itself unless you do have questions. I don't know that I'll be able to answer very specific questions right now, but they did say that it's a clean audit. They are just gathering up some additional information from our controllers, from YPTC, and they plan to have that done in the next week or two, and then we'll submit that for the finance committees to look at, and then the boards.
Okay, yeah, I'm just looking at the summary. Anybody have a question? Any board members? Israel?
Yeah, just again, because this could go either way, depending on how the people vote on Saturday, whether to extend the service of you, me, and Ashanti past Saturday through November or not. I would certainly say two things that concern me just looking at this audit report. I know from last year's audit report, there was concerns that our accounting procedures back in the office weren't to par. And so a lot of things have changed. I don't see anything here that addresses that issue. There were several checks from 2021 that were written over $10,000. We were supposed to look at that, and we never really tracked that down. I do want to tell the board that there were concerns that were raised by a prior employee as to the accounting procedures back in the office. I did have a conversation with the auditors, so the audit report should include a final conclusion into that I think the board needs to know. And then finally, on the functional expenses from 22 and 21, I would like to know, what do they attribute to program services versus management in general? And so if I'm not here, I would certainly say to the next treasurer or to the boards, I would try to find out more what is included in the program services, because when we were looking at the budget, as far as employee salaries, cost, I think it was like 40% of our budget came from employee related duties. So what I would like to know is why the program services at 79%, what it's going up. So is it because it's costing us to hire, or is it because we're hiring more groups from outside of the staff? So for what it's worth, for the next budget, for the next board, certainly try to track down how did the auditors come to that 79%, 21%. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Israel, for bringing that up. I think we're ready to move on from audit. I don't see any other questions. All right, convention, specifically 2024 and 2025. Jennifer, could you give us a summary of where we are with both of those?
Yes, I have contracts. They are not signed by us yet for both Indianapolis and Washington, D.C. Indianapolis in 2024, this board approved us moving forward with planning the convention for Indianapolis. Given the discussions about the budget and the finances and everything, I thought it was pertinent to come back to this meeting and just see if that's still the will of this board, or if we should, there have been discussions about maybe skipping 24 for a convention. So I wanted to put that back out there before I sign any contracts. And then for 2025, this board agreed that they wanted to partner again with CMA and ACP in Washington, D.C. And those two groups have already signed a contract with the same hotel that we were at last year in DC. And they are being very nice and patient with us. I told them I needed to come to convention and talk to the board one more time before I signed that contract as well. So we can talk about both of those if you would like. And
Yeah, I think we should start with 2024. And I was going to ask Ashanti because, you know, she has led some discussions about skipping 2024. So maybe Ashanti, you can give us that context again.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, looking at our finances, looking at our projections for the end of this year, I am not comfortable signing any contract that encumbers us to pay anything. To be honest with you, I'm not sure how we're going to pay for that. So tonight I'd like to make a motion to forego the 2024 convention altogether, or to move virtually. Because I really do honestly believe that we need a year off to be able to save up money, to be able to figure out what Lucas is going to be able to do as far as generating additional income revenue streams into the organization, so that we can be in a position to potentially be ready for 2025 to partner with CMA and ACP. So I would like to put a motion on the floor right now to either cancel the 2024 convention or move it virtually for financial.
I second the motion.
Okay, discussion, board members?
Yeah, I would like to suggest, first of all, let me explain where I am in my position with this. This conversation was had previously, and I was on the record as saying that I think taking away the convention tears at the very soul of this organization, and that it would be a drastic move. Having said that, we are staring down the barrel of a huge deficit. And I cannot in good conscience expect us to have a convention. Now, I do think there are some options that we can consider, that if we don't have a convention, that there's some options where maybe the national board could promote our regional conferences. And I want to get into all that, but I think that we can have conversations about that. So for the purposes of tonight, I guess I will do a 180. I will vote that we do not have a national convention next year because of our financial situation. That's where I stand. But I do think there are options, whether it's virtual or whether we have bolstered regional conferences where we can spend less money. We should have those conversations.
I want to kind of piggyback on something you said. One, I think that's a good idea for us to kind of spend that time and energy bolstering the regional conferences, but I also think that this may be an opportunity for us to use the time and energy that we would have spent planning for a convention to plan for some fundraisers. Looking at you, Lucas. You know what I mean? So instead of us, using that time, effort, and oxygen that we would normally use to plan for the 2024 convention, let's look at planning some big fundraisers that bring in some money into the coffers so that we can be prepared for 2025. I think that is going to be the best use of our time for this year for taking that time off. But I agree with you, bolstering those regional conferences and saying, well, yeah, we're not going to have a national one, but listen, you have other options that are really amazing. We want to make sure everybody knows about this. So I agree with that.
But SPJ in New England's going to be hosting a regional one at Emerson College here, so anybody who wants to go, you're welcome. We look forward to seeing them.
I was like, I have an album dropping.
I think Emily Block is up next.
Hey, thank you. I agree with what everyone has said. Next year obviously has to look different, just realistically where we are. However, I do get a little nervous about putting forward a motion and voting on it that says it's canceled altogether or like making a finite decision either way. I wonder if maybe the motion tonight could just center on not signing those contracts and tabling the decision or something of that nature, because to Kevin's point, rather than just bolstering regional conferences, why don't we team up with Region 5 and make their regional conference a joint conference with us? Like it's national and it's regional or something of that nature. Like I think there's a way where we could be creative and still have, maybe it's a smaller scale conference, quote unquote. That's all I'm saying. So I feel a little nervous about making a final let's cancel it now when maybe there's a way to salvage and just change how we're thinking about it. Thanks.
Okay, all right, thank you, Emily. Daniela,
Israel is actually before me.
Israel.
Yeah, I'm gonna do what Kevin said, and I'm gonna do a 180. I voted back in June to move forward. It's an anniversary. It's a huge anniversary for SPJ. Going back to Indianapolis made sense. And I regret my vote. And so I too think that we just need to go ahead and make a decision. I respectfully disagree with my colleague from Philadelphia, Emily, because the budget process has to start being made now. We went through the process this year of planning the convention late. So the idea, and this is for you, Ashanti, the fact that you could start and know exactly that we're not doing this, we're moving forward, there's no more discussion, then you could put together a budget that you can guarantee it, right? And again, I want to be careful because I know this individual is running for the board, so this is not an endorsement. But Nicole DeCrisio has had great ideas about how the regions can do better, but that's a different conversation than the contracts. And so certainly if she were to come on the board, that could be part of the conversation. But I'm with you, Ashanti. I think it's the right thing to do. That way we start fresh. And when you start putting your budget together next week, you already know you don't have to deal with the convention. So I will be voting to cancel that contract, or for the executive director to not sign any contracts and just cancel the convention altogether.
And Israel, just to add quickly before we go to Daniela, yeah, I see the regionals as a lot of potential there. And perhaps, last term, we voted to fund the regionals. I know I've run them and you need money for lunch, you need money for honorariums or whatever. And that's always a challenge with the regionals. So perhaps without a conference, we could send some more funding their way to make their events bigger and better. Let's go to Daniela.
Yeah, I mean, initially when we first had this conversation, I was with Ashanti. I didn't think it was financially smart for us, and I know that, as things have played out, it's definitely not. So I'm glad to hear that most of you guys, I don't know how you guys feel, but those who have spoken are on board with not having it. I know it's a tough conversation. I know SPJ conferences are so important to people. I mean, we're all here for it, but yeah, I just don't think we should.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I do want to point out, I know we love the conference. It brings us together, but we have 500 out of our membership of over 4,100 at this point. So it's, 1/8 of the membership is participating in the conference this year. So that's a good perspective to think of. I do want to ask Jennifer, did you want to give any details?
Kevin had a follow-up. So sorry, Claire. Kevin has a follow-up.
Oh, I didn't see. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, just real quick, to point out, each year, each conference has been able to apply for a $1,500 grant to help. If we were to double that, as you had said, to help them, we're talking about an expenditure of $36,000, which is far less than what we would spend in convention. If every region brings 50 people, we will have outperformed this convention. Okay? We would talk about 600 people as opposed to the barely 500 we have here for a fraction of what the cost is going to be. So something to keep in mind, please.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna ask Jennifer just to give some perspective on Indianapolis because the research was done and some pricing was done. I mean, just to complete the perspective on the whole conversation. Jennifer, do you want to offer a few details?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, just a couple of points. So, Indianapolis is a cheaper city to have a convention in versus DC or Las Vegas. Those are tier 1 cities. Indianapolis is a tier 2 city. The hotel is working with us. They've offered to discount the food and beverage minimum even more. You know, they really want us to be there, so they're going above and beyond to try to give us some good deals. And I have been working on bringing some other journalism groups as partners. I had a good meeting with the military veteran journalists, for example. They have tried to do a conference on their own a few years, and they admit that they would like some help. And so, you know, I was planning to approach some other organizations to bring partners back so we aren't doing convention alone. So, you know, those are just some other things to consider. Normally, in years where we've had partners, we've made money on conventions. These last 2 years are kind of unique. So those are just some things to keep in mind and consider. But yes, I hear what you're saying about the regional conferences. We also haven't done an in-person SDX Awards in DC for pre-COVID. So, you know, that's something I think we should talk about bringing back. And, you know, that would be another opportunity for us to get together and just celebrate journalism. So.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to point out we are behind in conference planning. I mean, skipping this one will catch us up. I mean, we need to catch up. Most organizations know 2, 3, sometimes 4 years out what their convention locations are, and they promote them on the website. So I think we have to play some catch up. We've fallen behind on that. I guess pandemic related, obviously, but my first year on the board, we were planning out several years ahead. So I think that's something to consider. It is a little late, you know, it's late now. It's 1 year away. So we have to take that into consideration too. And those are my thoughts. I have a couple more hands up. It looks like Emily or Daniela, is your hand up?
Yeah, I was actually gonna see if we could call the vote.
Yeah.
Oh, you ready? Okay, go ahead. You want to make a motion or do we have a motion on the floor?
Yeah, we have a motion on the floor, we have a second as well.
Can I just ask something? Are we going to rule out the virtual conference then? Just no
That
conference?
was my question too. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
I can make a friendly amendment to, you know, drop the virtual part of it if we're going to, you know, go down the road of just bolstering the regionals, which I think is likely a better use of our time and energy.
Yeah, I would agree with that,
But it, you know, it's up for discussion, but I mean, I would say, I think our time and energy might be better spent planning fundraisers and bolstering those regional conferences. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, especially with what Kevin said. I mean, that was
Yeah.
pretty.
Yeah.
I agree. You had mentioned
Yeah.
virtual conference, so I figured we should
Yes,
address.
I can definitely amend my motion to include, so I will amend my emotion, my emotion. I will amend my motion to cancel the 2024 SPJ annual convention. That is the motion. That's on
I
the floor.
second it.
Second.
Okay, second discussion. Okay, I think we're ready to vote. I think it should be a roll call vote. Israel?
Yes, and I'm not a parliamentarian expert, God knows that, but is the vote to, because it was somebody called the vote. So,
Yeah, call the question. I did a friendly amendment.
okay,
Please.
so then because you did the final amendment, then we're just gonna vote on the amendment and that we're not gonna vote on calling the vote. So the amendment is here's what we're voting on: to cancel the 2024 SPJ convention. Okay. All right, and Claire, you called roll call, so let me
Yes, please.
names. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Claire,
Yes.
Israel is a yes. Ashanti,
Yes.
Emily,
No.
Daniela,
Yes.
Jody,
Yes.
Adam,
Yes.
Kevin,
yes.
and Peter is still absent. So that's a 7 yes and 1 no. Ashanti's motion passes.
Okay, thank you all.
I know, you can-
Difficult decision, but with wisdom. Okay, let's go on to number 13, which is campus chapter approval and the University of Nebraska. I'll give that back to Jennifer.
Thank you. This should be the last time you hear from me. So a few weeks ago, Crystal, our membership specialist, emailed you all about the University of Nebraska Lincoln completing the requirements for a new student chapter, and they wished to seek approval. To approve that via email, it needed to be an unanimous vote, and that did not happen. So that's why we're bringing it to you in this meeting, so you can vote whether to approve this chapter.
Okay, so let's see. Is that an official motion? That's an motion to approve the chapter?
Through the University of Nebraska Lincoln campus chapter application.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
Okay, discussion.
Welcome, Huskers.
Yeah, welcome.
It's my favorite part of the job.
Okay. Looks like we're ready to move on to the vote.
Madam Chair, I think you can just call a voice vote on this one.
Yeah, we'll just do A or nay, right? You want to just do that? All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, unanimously approved. Welcome, Nebraska. All right, we're gonna, I don't know, I can't see from my vantage point if Sunny is here. Sunny Alvarado,
No, he's not here.
not here. Okay, so he is number 14. He was gonna give us a report. Okay, we'll go on to number 15. Adam Sennett is there. And Adam, I asked Adam to prepare a brief summary of his passionate project on the history of SPJ. He's been working hard, and probably many of you have been called by Adam to help him as he builds our history collection. So Adam, could you give us a little summary?
They're all here now, so there's no getting out. So a couple of months ago, Nicole DeCrisio and I went to the archive, the SPJ archive at DePauw University to sort of see what SPJ artifacts were there. There were 52 boxes of really amazing stuff, but we started wondering what SPJ is missing, what else is out there that we might want to add to it. So I went on eBay and checked to see if there was anything for sale, and there was a ton of really, really great stuff. So I put a list together and I asked SPJ members to kick in and contribute, and Bill Blyer wound up buying a petition to start a student chapter at the University of Texas from 1912. Alex S. Jones bought Turner Cabot, the famous New York Times editor's Bellows key that was for sale. Claire bought several old student magazines from the Bagua, which I believe is from the University of Minnesota. I've got some stuff here. I brought some stuff with me. We have a student directory from 1936 from Montana State University. I believe there's currently no student members in the entire state of Montana. So like maybe this is like inspiration start to get that back. There's still a lot of really great stuff for sale. I'm looking for people to continue to contribute. Tim bought an ashtray from the 1962 convention. It had the SPJ logo and everything. It's no Oklahoma. So if any of you want to contribute, please let me know. There's a lot of great stuff still to buy. We get shipped to Nicole DeCrisio, and she would bring it to the bot to go in the archive. She can be preserved. So, and if any of you guys want to see the stuff, let me know.
So you've got a couple of items with you to show and tell.
Yes, I'm just the
People want to find you. Okay.
Directory from Montana State University. Let's see. North Dakota created this joke. It's called Joke Rabbit. It was a satirical little pamphlet that they made, and I think they sold it for 25 cents back in 1947 to raise money for the chapter. SPJ had an official song that was in a booklet. Yep. Now we have copies of that.
He sang it at 100 Anniversary.
You know what, we can probably do it again. I got the lyrics. We got forward chapter, I believe there's somebody here, in the forward chapter. We have, one of their gridiron, awards dinners for their interns from 1961. It's a menu and it's got all their interns in it. Yeah, yes, it does, it's really authentic. The Oregon, the student chapter of the University of Oregon made a style book for their, student newspaper. This was, what year is this? 1934. This was in, so, there's lots of really great stuff. We have another satirical booklet that the Headliners Club in Utah made as well, so. Yeah, if you guys wanna see any of this stuff, let me know, flag me and if you take a look and let me know if you want to spend some money to get more stuff like this. We're looking for more donations.
What's really interesting is these items are all on eBay. So I guess as people, empty their estates or whatever happens, they go on eBay, all these SPJ items. And what's the oldest item that you found so far?
The petition, to start a student chapter at the University of Texas from 1912. So
1912, 3 years after we were founded. Okay, wow.
it's probably one of our first student chapters. We couldn't bring it because it was very, very effective.
Yeah.
Want to get that put in our head as quickly as possible. Yeah.
Well, I've discussed this with Adam, and I think this could be a really great project to build on our website. I mean, we do have a history link, but it could be expanded, and I think this has a lot of potential. So we can continue working on that as a project. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Okay, committee reports. I can't see everybody, so I sort of just ask if there is a committee chair who would like to just give a brief summary of their report for us verbally, that would be fine. I believe, is Brendan O'Reilly in the room, or he was going to be available, or no? Okay, please just put your hand up if you're on Zoom or whatever.
Tim Igo is here, Nicole Prano is here.
Oh, good.
Those are the only chairs that I see. Oh, yes, and Jody, yes.
Okay, Tim, did you want to give a brief summary? I'm putting you on the spot, but you can say no, it's okay, because you submitted one in writing.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Reports in your materials.
Yeah.
But the committee came together, and I was so proud to see us find candidates for every position and contested races for all the board positions. And my heart wells up quite a bit for the people who are willing to run and lead this organization. And thank you, Claire, for your trust in the committee. Thank you.
Well, thank you back at you for serving in the role. I do appreciate that. Okay, and we also said, Nicole is there, Nicole Prano? Nicole, did you want to give a little quick summary about awards and honors?
Sure, yeah. Two major high points for awards and honors is that our submissions and revenue were both up from awards this year for both SDX and MOE. And we have successfully reviewed all of the categories once again. We have pared some stuff down, but we also have some new things to introduce this year at convention. So we have a lot of good stuff going on to end the year in terms of awards.
That's great. Thank you, Nicole. Jody Rave Spotted Bear for Freedom of Information. Do you want to give a quick summary?
Sure. So I've done earlier reports on the work that we had done during Sunshine Week. At this conference, Bat Press will be reviewed. I'm not sure on what day, so I encourage everybody to go check that out. It won the Sundance Award for Freedom of Expression. And yeah, I think I'd be really looking forward to hearing people's comments on that particular documentary. More recently, our committee put in a lot of hours on reviewing the Sunshine Awards. Man, there was an excellent slate of stories that were submitted for this year, and that's something we have to look forward to during the conference is handing those awards out. Now, this next issue is probably our biggest project to date. We just started kicking it off. SPJ, the Indigenous Journalist Association, Indigenous Media Freedom Alliance, and the Data Driven Reporting Project are embarking on a huge project to create a national database for missing and murdered Indigenous women. Now, that project was supposed to be done by the Department of Justice like 3-4 years ago, and they just haven't done it. So in talking with Ashanti and Claire and many other journalists around the country, I said, can we create this national database? And luckily, one of my colleagues at the Data Driven Reporting Project said, we can do this, Jody. So we've had several meetings so far. We have our next meeting, I think, oh my gosh, October 3rd. It's going to take about 2 years to complete this project, and nobody faint, but it's going to cost about $1.5 million to do this. We're not holding, don't be hiding over there, Mr. Metropolis. You know, we will ask SPJ if there's anything SPJ can contribute to this, but we're looking at major foundations to fund this project, and we already have a lot of, I think we've already got 50,000 from the Data Driven Reporting Project just to kick this off. But luckily, between these other foundations or organizations working with us, we're gonna get this done. So yeah, that concludes my report.
Very ambitious project. Thank you for explaining it, Jody. Excellent. Israel, you have your hand up. Did you want to give an LDF report?
No, the finance report is.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get to that. I'm just checking.
Yeah, I can do the LDF first if you'd like.
Yeah, want to do that? Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to give you, Madam Chair, kudos for how you led the SPJ and the Legal Defense Fund in really leading the conversation as to what happens when the power of the government comes against small newsrooms. As you all know, earlier this year, a newsroom in Kansas was raided by a local sheriff for nothing more than what they're doing their job. That happened on a Friday. By Sunday, we were voting to give the newspaper $20,000. And a lot of that is due to your leadership, Madam Chair. You know, and a lot of people have reached out to me and said, man, this was the proudest moment. You all stepped up. You did exactly what your mission statement says, that we defend the First Amendment no matter what. That $20,000 from the LDF fund went a long way to tell people we're here, we're not going to wait, and we mean business. And so, listen, I'd like to make a little pitch. I'm going out. Tim Igo is going to take over LDF. I'm a huge fan of Tim. He's also trained as a lawyer, and I think he's going to do a fantastic job of leading the effort with LDF in the next year. But I will say, this is why you want to donate to LDF. LDF money is not part of operation costs. It's separate. We do this so that we can give money to people when they need it immediately on the spot. And looking back now, we know that the sheriff was wrong. We know that the judge was wrong on this issue. So I just want to say to you, Claire, thank you, because you really did a great job of being the voice for SPJ and what it does with the Legal Defense Fund. So thank you.
I appreciate that, Israel. But I appreciate the board support, and we all came together on that Sunday night, just 48 hours after the raid, and with a unanimous vote. That's the power of SPJ. This is the good work that SPJ can do, and we need to celebrate successes. We face a lot of challenges. When we have a success, we need to celebrate it. So I appreciate you pointing that out. Also, I just want to let everybody know that that generosity really generated a lot of traction. There are multiple interviews, and any story that wrote about the raid mentioned, basically I can pretty much generalize and say almost every story mentioned our LDF funding as part of the coverage. So, we were in Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Associated Press. So, we still do have a voice. We have a strong voice, and I think that really solidified it. So thank you to all who made it happen. And we also had an interview with Eric Meyer, like the next week. SPJ New England put that together. That was another, I think that was helpful to Eric as well. So we have a good relationship, and we also placed an ad. We placed a full page ad. I hope everybody saw it on social media. Headquarters blasted it out so we could all see. We bought a full page ad. We shared the expense. Actually, I'm just realizing we didn't have any expense because half of it was a $1,200 ad, I believe, and half of it was paid for by Reporters Without Borders. They went in on the ad with us. The other half was paid for by an anonymous donor. So there was zero expense to SPJ for the full page ad in the Marion County Record. And I know they appreciated that generosity as well. So thank you to all. All right, I think we're ready to move on to old and new business. I'm sorry.
Well, I just wanted to thank all the committee chairs.
Daniela.
Oh, perfect. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm sorry, I missed you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to thank all the committee chairs for their work. One committee I wanted to point out is the sports task, or the sports committee. That's a relatively new committee, and Jeff Cole has kicked it out of the park. I think he's excited a lot of sports journalists to join our organization and really support our mission. And I think that's what's going to help us move forward.
Yeah, we're gonna make almost every single.
Yeah.
This year.
And they're good,
And
like
really solid webinars that, that is him and his committee put together.
Exactly. 2 days.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's on fire.
Yeah. And he is returning as chair of that committee. Yeah. More program. Yes.
That's great. He's got a lot of connections in the sports world. That's terrific. Yeah, I guess I thank you for bringing that up. Daniela, of course, we want to thank all the committees and their work that they've done, and the chairs especially. All volunteers, and I always want to thank our volunteers for their volunteer effort. SPJ is built on volunteering. So thank you to all. Okay, we're going on to recognition of outgoing board members. Since we're all not there, I'm going to actually table that, and we'll figure out a way to make that happen. Jennifer, did you want to add anything about that? Is she there?
Sorry about that.
Okay.
I had to go through my different windows. No, we usually have certificates that we give to the outgoing board members. So, depending on how this bylaws amendment goes, on Saturday, we'll figure that out, and we'll make sure that the appropriate people get the appropriate certificates. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, thanks for clarifying. All right, that being said.
Madam Chair, point of clarification.
Yes, go
real quick. We moved on past old new business, so that was one. Nobody said anything.
Oh, I thought I brought that up.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
That's okay. No, that's all right. And then the finance report was in the committee reports.
Yes, that's right. We have to go back to you. Okay, so let's do old new business. Does anybody have any old or new business to mention?
Well, before you move to 17, we can't
Yeah.
move on to 17 since we're still in 16.
Oh, I see. That's where your finance is listed. Okay.
That's right.
Okay, let's do that. So are you ready? Can you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
This is the one time that actually right on the bylaws, according to Article 6, Section 7, the treasurer shall be responsible for overseeing an account of all receipts and disbursements, assets and liabilities, and shall report to the president, to the board, or to the convention when requested. That means that everybody who's here on Zoom can actually participate in asking me questions, because this is a convention. So I just want to put that out there, that anybody who's there in the room and anybody who's here in the Zoom can raise questions, and I will answer any and all questions in the best way possible if you do have a question regarding the finances. I did ask Jennifer to put in the packet the report from the end of August. It's not the full quarter report. I also had asked Jennifer if she could put the reports from the first quarter, second and third quarter. She said no, she thought it would be too much to put those reports in there because this is a summary of that. Given the conversation that's been happening, I think that at some point you should at least get the full report for this year. But for now, we'll just stick to my report based on the SPJ financials from August 2023. In that report, the bottom line is that as of right now, SPJ faces somewhere between $300,000 and $350,000 in deficit. I understand that the interim executive director said that for now, and this is what she wrote, we are working hard to reduce or eliminate the projected deficit budget. I take issue with her projection that this is projected budget deficit. While it is a projected budget deficit, the numbers on the ground are just not realistic. And this was the same thing that I said to the board in March before we approved the budget. And that is the numbers looking ahead. When you look at rolling averages or rolling forecast, and I direct everybody to, for example, page 11 of 13 in the SPJ financial report. If you just look, for example, at October, November, and December, and you look at, for example, the line item of, say, take the membership dues, right? Historically, the membership money comes in 2 times during the year. It comes in during awards, and it comes in right before the conferences because people want to get the discount. So the idea that, for example, we believe that, $1,800 or $2,600 or $2,900 might come in, I would have asked, what are the historical averages for that kind of money, right? When we're looking at the fourth quarter, is it going to be possible that we're going to make up $350,000 in deficit? I would say to the board, no, it is not possible. I'm not a public relations expert. I don't try to give you rosy numbers. What I've done all year long is to tell you, this is what I think is going to happen. And so that's why, for example, there's been an email that has been sent out to all of SPJ members. And in that email sent from one of the candidates who's running to replace me. The first thing he says in the report is SPJ leaders just discovered, or SPJ leaders discovered. That is absolutely not true. We did not discover anything. This board and all SPJ members knew back in March that when it came to, for example, coming up with $350,000 in membership dues, I told this board that's not going to happen. And I informed this board that probably in the third quarter, we would face anywhere between $250,000 and $350,000 in deficits. Why? Because most of our revenue comes in during this time period. And because I didn't believe those numbers were realistic as to membership dues and registration fees, I did tell this board, I think these numbers are going to hit us hard in September. So we haven't discovered that we are in a deficit. We just knew that this was coming. And if we didn't make, for example, advertising revenue, and if we didn't get more grants, and we were told, if you recall, board members, they were going to work hard to get more grants. And I didn't think we were going to get more grants. Then therefore, this money was not going to come to fruition. So what happens next? Here's what I would advise, as this is my last report as treasurer. The next board, and Ashanti knows this, I desperately wanted to give her, for her Sunday meeting, a budget surplus. I worked hard. And so now you have to worry about 2 things. Number one, how much money are we going to lose out of the conference? And that includes not just how many people registered, but how much did we promise in the contract with Planet Hollywood that we were going to do in meals, in rooms, and things of that nature. So be prepared to take a hit in case we don't make those numbers. And then 2, as we're looking ahead to other costs, salaries continues to be a big deal. And so back in March, I had advised that this board, one of the reasons why I did not vote for this budget is because I felt at some point we would have to let go of some employees. I would think that the association side may be a saving grace for Ashanti and the next board. I know that's a hard decision. Anytime you talk about, we can't, we don't have the money to keep the staff, that's a hard conversation, but it has to be had. And finally, on the issues of just looking ahead, please understand, right? These are 2 organizations. We got the SPJ Foundation and we got the SPJ board. Tomorrow, SPJ Foundation, which is managing all our money, right? Because SPJ members have given to SPJ because they believe in our mission of the First Amendment and ethical journalism. Tomorrow, SPJ Foundation could write a check and help us out immediately. They've got $14,000 as a corpus. And so I would have those conversations in the open. Too many times we meet with the foundation behind closed doors. And I would urge, because the members now want to be part of this conversation going forward, any conversations between the SPJ and the foundation should be had in the open. And as I said earlier, my urging to all, the time has come to have serious conversations about getting rid of the two separate entities between the 501c3, which you get a tax write-off because you give money to the foundation, but they are supposed to give us money. One of the reasons we're losing as of the last report is because the foundation was not going to give us the grant that every year the foundation gives to SPJ for the conference. So certainly that kind of, are we waiting for the foundation to give us money and we go in there and we ask them, first of all, that's not the bylaws. The bylaws strictly state that the foundation should be there to support SPJ. But nonetheless, I would urge all the members who are here, it is time we merge the 501c3 and the 501c6 together, because it doesn't make sense to have two separate organizations. And tomorrow, if we did this, all our financial difficulties would go away. With that, I will take any questions from the board member and from the convention.
I have a question, and it's for Jennifer. So, why didn't we ask for the $50,000 grant for the convention?
That's a good question. So when I originally submitted that request, it was early on in the year. I didn't fully understand how the budget was put together. It's pretty complicated between what the foundation pays for, what SPJ pays for. You know, we request reimbursement from the foundation quarterly for salaries and things. So I was still learning, YPTC was still learning, and we decided that we were going to move some convention expenses that historically looked like they were part of that reimbursement request. We were just going to go ahead and include those in the foundation budget. So the foundation would, like the Diversity Fellows program, for example, those expenses now come straight from the foundation's budget instead of SPJ paying for it up front and including it in that reimbursement request. So at the time, we were looking at everything and we thought, okay, maybe we don't need to request that grant to help with convention because the foundation's paying for their part of convention already. So I withdrew it. Now I'm wishing I had left it in. The foundation did have some money to give to grants, as you all know. It wasn't as much as they usually have to give out to grants, but you know, if I could go back, I would have left that request in and maybe you know, in hopes that the foundation would have just used the money they had left for awarding grants and put it toward the convention. Now that I see the numbers now, so hindsight, you know what they say.
And Daniela, if I could add context to that, here's my concern. One of the reasons that under law the foundation can give money is because if it's a 501c3, right, and the purpose is education, then it can give money for educational purposes. The convention has always been for educational purposes only. Ashanti has put a fantastic conference together where people are going to learn. So for example, in 2015, the foundation gave to SPJ $85,000 in grant money for the conference. Now, as a foundation member, and I'm a member of the foundation, we vote on the budget. Absolutely 100% we vote. And then there's a money that they can give, a percentage of what's called the corpus. When we were voting on the corpus in March, it was at $11 million. Okay. Now, they voted to give money to other organizations, other grant organizations. And we said, why are you giving grant money to other organizations when your own house is burning? Don't do that. Nonetheless, the grant money for the conference never has come through the first round of budgets because it's a request from the second and third quarter. And so for me, the idea that, we have to submit for a grant request, okay, but the foundation knows it's always going to come in the second and third quarter. How do I know that? Because last year they were upset that we didn't put in the request in the second and third quarter, and we were negotiating that money past the third and fourth quarter. So I would ask the foundation, why do we have to beg for money when you now have increased since March by $3 million in the corpus? Now, I know there's an individual on the foundation who really wants to not spend the corpus. Fine. But there's another foundation member like Alex Jones who says, no, we need to spend the corpus to save the organization. $50,000 as compared to, for example, $3 million, that's a non-negotiable. Right now, we are begging, but we shouldn't be begging for that money.
Okay, thank you, Israel. Any other board members? Excuse me. Okay, well, we omitted public comment on the agenda, and I apologize for that. So I'm going to open it up to public comment now, and you can ask any question from the entire agenda.
Claire, do you want me to keep time?
I can't hear that.
Do you want to keep time, Claire?
Oh, yes, please. And if I'm missing somebody, please let me know. So, Jennifer Ellis, I see you on the screen. Do you want to ask your question? Jennifer Ellis? Okay, I guess this is, I'll ask the question on her behalf. It's for, I guess it would be directed toward Jennifer because it's a convention question. Why are some line item categories for convention expenses over budget?
Yeah, that's a pretty simple answer. Some things have come in over budget. They've been more expensive than we anticipated. We are coming in under budget in a lot of places too. But travel is one area that is costing us more than we anticipated. Flights have increased and, we're flying in several fellows of the society, various, staff, other scholarship winners. So it's just simply that things were more expensive than we were planning on.
Okay, thank you.
This is Kevin. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Kevin.
I want to make sure that the membership knows that this board had a discussion, and I'm not saying this because I'm trying to be noble, but this board had a conversation about how we were going to fund bringing the fellows in from around the country and the decision was made that some of us, and it doesn't matter how many, but some of us made the decision that we were going to forego any travel stipends. Typically a travel stipend is $1,500 and it was cut to $750. Those of us who had not spent that turned that money back in to headquarters in an effort to cover the costs of those fellows' travel so that we could save money. So I just want to point that out again. I'm not trying to be noble, but I want people to understand that we are moved money and we tried to make it, tried to create a situation where we were not spending money excessively, right? And I will also say, we're here tonight and we've got a dinner here, and honestly, with the budget overrun this convention, this dinner here looks like bad optics for us. we've got food here. I know what hotel food costs. For us to have this expenditure when we're having this, just doesn't look good on our part. I don't know what it costs, but I will, if I partake of any food, I will send a check to SPJ headquarters to pay for my meal tonight. Because I don't think that we should be spending the money here to cover dinners for the board when we're pinching pennies at this point.
I think it's also important to note that there's a food and beverage minimum. So this likely was part of the food and beverage.
Okay. That's, yes, that
Yeah.
could be very much.
Yeah.
I don't think they comped it, but
Okay, thank you, Kevin, for that point. On Zoom, we cannot see any buffet there. I didn't know that was in there. Anybody else
See it now?
behind you? The limits of Zoom. Anybody else? Any public comments?
Nicole did for CFO.
Yeah.
Hold on, one time, sorry. Hold on.
Okay, I'm gonna make it really brief.
All right, go ahead.
All right, so I just want to say something about, the national convention canceling, and I think that, like, you guys are in a very tough position and one that, you know, in a few days of elected, I very well may be in as well. That being said, something that, I have been thinking is, you know, how can we maybe reimagine it? And I think that putting towards regionals is a great idea too. The other thing is, you know, with it being the 115th anniversary, so long as our terms aren't tied to our convention, whenever that is, there may be the possibility to have the paw host us, which you can really market and say, hey, we're going back to our birthplace for our 115th anniversary. And not have it cost money or even have my regional fund cover all of the upfront costs and hopefully make a profit because I don't have any other revenue streams. But, you know, I think that there are ways that we can do that. And so I know that the decision has been made, but it may be worth looking into seeing if there's a different way to approach it. Because it looks really bad to our membership to say, we don't have any money and now we're canceling convention, especially because this has been for a lot of members the first time that they've heard it. As a leader, I've known about it. I've sat in meetings in March, but that has not been communicated directly from this board to our membership. And that I think is a problem. And I just want to say that hearing that and then hearing that the convention is being canceled is not really great optics when it could easily be reframed in a different way and not cost SPJ money from this budget. So I just wanted to put that out there, and that I was here in the room and happy to have spoken on it earlier, but not called upon.
Okay. Sorry, I got a call about a delegate issue, so I'll pass it along to you, Jennifer. Okay, are there any other public comments?
Lauren
See any,
Bartlett has her hand-
Shanti?
whenever-
Oops, I'm sorry. Can you say that again? I was on mute.
Lauren Bartlett has her hand up.
Okay,
What's the time limit?
2 minutes.
Okay, great. I wanted to just address a couple of things. The first of which is it is critical that this board inform membership proactively about what's going on. Because it's only been active members, current and past leaders who are on listserv who really have had knowledge of anything that's gone on in the past few months and the dire financial situation that SPJ is in. We owe it to our members, and the board owes it to the membership to be forthright and forthcoming and laying out what the problems are and why. I'm also going to put out there that it is not the foundation's responsibility to write a blank check when in the past several years, the foundation has given the board money. The board has not managed it properly. The board has not maintained a budget that's in the black since John Schertzer was here. And I also wanted to address canceling convention. I don't think that's what's going to save this organization. If it is properly
planned if there is attempts to get sponsorships, which there seems to be much of this year. It can be at least a break-even point, and it's something that when you look at the number of members we have now, it's a much larger percentage that it happens. And when people ask, what's the value proposition of SPJ right now? Why should people be members? Why should people stay members? Why should people donate money? I don't know how we answer that question at this point. So it's a very breaking point for me as a member since I was 18 years old. Nationally since 1997. That's your fun. Thanks, Ashanti.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the room, Ashanti?
Not that I can see.
All right, we can close public comment then. And it looks like we're about to wrap up. I'm going to move on to adjournment unless I skip something again. I don't think so, but please let me know. Okay, it is 11:15 p.m. here on the East Coast. So would somebody, could I call a motion? Would somebody please make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Do we need any discussion other than thank you all for coming tonight and for all your hard work?
Can I just say something real quick before we?
Of course.
Just wanted to thank you, Claire, so much for your service. I know it's been a challenging year, from really day -1, so.
Yeah.
So that's what I'll say. But, you know, just wanted to say thank you so much for your leadership, and thank you to the rest of the board. And also thanks to the folks that will be continuing on, to the board under my term. We got work to do, but I think together we can move in a positive direction and start to right the ship. We didn't get here overnight, so we're not gonna fix it overnight. So I just wanted to say that as a closing, and then just to say thank you to everyone on the board, but especially you, Claire, for your leadership.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate the board's hard work. You know, we didn't always agree, but we worked through a lot of difficult situations. And, you know, we put all our experiences together and handled it as best as we could for the benefit of the society. I know that we all have that in our hearts to do what's best for SPJ. And I do appreciate that and the privilege and the pleasure of serving as president. Thank you for that opportunity. And yes, thank you to the committee chairs and regional coordinators and all the volunteers of SPJ. I appreciate it. All right, with that, I think we are ready to vote on adjournment. All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, and I think, did Peter Seke make it into the room? He just landed, so he did make it in. All right, Peter. All right, thank you all and enjoy the buffet.
Bye.
All right, bye guys.